There's $800 million in Bitcoin sitting in a landfill right now. He knows exactly where it is, he just can't get to it, and he's not the only one. Today I'm going to walk you through the most painful Bitcoin horror stories ever recorded, the real ones, the ones that actually happen to real people, and more importantly, I'm going to show you exactly how to make sure it doesn't happen to you. Because the difference between the people in these stories and you is what you do in the next 20 minutes. Yo, and welcome to the Bitcoin Entrepreneur Show. My name is Chris, and I will be your host. And today we have an interesting topic in Bitcoin horror stories and how to never become one. So I like to timestamp these episodes with the Bitcoin price. So right now we are at a Bitcoin price of $75,405. We have been in a little bit of a dip, but it's not like a big dip, and people seem to be losing their mind a little bit over it, but I'm not worried at all. Like, I am not worried about the when it comes to longevity of the Bitcoin network, because I think Bitcoin is the best asset in the world, and there's tons of data to back this. Let me just say before we start the episode, this is not financial advice. I'm just some guy on the internet, and boom, there we go. Lawyers cannot touch us. So I want to start this episode by just bringing up a few things that just some facts, really, some statistics. So more new buyers are entering the market right now more than ever. That's obviously big. Like, that's kind of the whole thing, right? But the problem is most of them are buying on apps like Coinbase, Cash App, and Robinhood, and they just leave it there. And so this is also something that's going on in my own family. Like my dad, for example, he's got all his Bitcoin on crypto.com. And I don't really trust things like that. I say put it on cold storage, like, Tangem or Ledger or BitKey, or just there's many options you can do that are cold storage signing devices, right? There's way more. Google it. It's an easy search. You can find the best ones, easy peasy. And, maybe I should release like a directory of the best Bitcoin wallets on my website, chriscyber.vip. So I'll probably end up doing that very soon. There are some on there, but it's not huge. But you see, this is the thing. We improve with this YouTube channel, right? So with that being said, like, the people that buy on exchanges like this, they don't actually hold the Bitcoin. And, like, there's a huge difference between holding the Bitcoin and not holding the Bitcoin. So let's bring up a little bit of I guess it's an analogy here. It's like buying gold and leaving it at the store, and you have the receipt, but you don't actually own the gold. So it's like, that sucks if you don't have the gold. I mean, you got the receipt that you own it, but where's the physical gold? You don't have it. An estimated 3 to 4 million Bitcoin are permanently lost forever, which is roughly 20% of the total supply that will ever exist. So that's wild. But that's due to people either, dying, or just completely being invisible to the world with, like, different identities maybe, or whatever, like potentially Satoshi. I mean, is Satoshi dead? Is Satoshi just being completely invisible to society as Satoshi? Like, these are questions we don't necessarily know, but these are, reasons why that we have Bitcoin that's permanently lost, because it's just, if you lose it, you lose it. That's it. You're not getting it back. This increases the scarcity of Bitcoin. So, to be honest, like, whenever this happens, it kind of helps the Bitcoin price as compared to dollars. It kind of does. As much as people might not like that, it's kind of what it does. But it's also, like, due to these issues that people have in terms of keeping their Bitcoin safe. And this is the whole thing I want to teach in this episode. So to start, we're going to have a couple horror stories, And then when we get through those horror stories, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can secure your Bitcoin and never become one of these people. So the horror story number one is the $800 million landfill that I just said in the intro of this video. So the man's name that lost the Bitcoin was named James Howells. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully I am. He's from Wales, and this was back in 2013. So he was an IT worker, and he mined about 8,000 Bitcoin in 2013 on his laptop, and he ended up throwing out that hard drive during like a home clean out at some point. So you might have heard of this, but he spent years trying to convince the local council to let him dig into the landfill to try to find this hard drive. But he was denied many times, like based on environmental concerns and legal issues. So as of today, 2026, that hard drive is worth over $800 million and it's buried in garbage. Like, we have no idea where it is. So the Bitcoin is gone, but it's still there on the blockchain, right? So that's exactly the point, and it's exactly where he left it, but he just lost the key to actually be able to access it. So it's not lost, but it will just potentially never be able to be recovered in any way. So you can't do anything with it. It's just gone into the ether, so to speak. So that sucks, for him. But it's kind of good for anybody who still holds the asset and safely, because of the fact that the scarcity is now like more scarce. There's more scarcity within the network. And there's a lesson here. So the lesson would be like, your Bitcoin is only as safe as the physical thing it's stored on. So hard drives fail, laptops get thrown out, and digital doesn't mean permanent. But, you got to keep your private keys safe. And you also have to like update that security over time. And that's one thing that people don't necessarily do, or they don't think about the failures, because like, I hate to bring any of this up. I don't want to put this out into the universe for anybody, but it's like, if your house caught on fire and you lost your private keys, like, you lost your private keys. Like, there could have been generational wealth in terms of Bitcoin within the private keys that you lost. So, yeah, sucks for you. So let's bring up horror story number two. So somebody named Stefan Thomas from San Francisco in 2021, a software developer received 7,002 Bitcoin as a payment for a video he made in 2011. Okay, so he stored it on an iron key, which was an encrypted USB drive that permanently locks after 10 wrong password attempts. So that's, secure to some extent, but it also like is completely risky, right? So the individual here tried 8 times, so he's got 2 attempts left to get into this hard drive, unless it's going to be completely locked, right? So he has not tried again since 2021. So the longer you wait, probably the lesser you're going to be able to remember what the actual password was, but whatever. So at the current prices, there's over $700 million worth of Bitcoin that are locked behind a password that he can't remember, because, I don't know, who knows? Like, he might remember it one day, maybe, and hopefully he has the opportunity to be able to get in there. I've lost private keys in the past, and I have no clue how much money that was lost in there, because it was mining in the early, not even in the early days, but way earlier than where we are now. So that sucks. He can't remember the passwords, right? So the Bitcoin is still sitting on the blockchain and it's safe. It's just, the guy is just waiting because he doesn't know what the password is. He has 2 tries left. Ugh. Right? You got 2 tries to secure the future of your entire life, complete changing of your life. And obviously there is still a lesson to be learned here, right? Complexity is the enemy of access. So if your backup system is so complicated that you can't even get into it, it's not a backup, it's kind of a trap, right? So there's a lesson to be learned here, there's a lesson to be learned in all these, and there is only one more horror story I have here. So let's get into horror story number 3. So to be quite honest with you, I don't even know how to pronounce this to some extent, but it's like Quadriga CX Canada in 2019. So this was Canada's largest crypto exchange at the time, and there was the founder, the CEO of the company. He died suddenly in India in December in 2018 at the age of 30. That I don't know what to say about that. I don't know how he died necessarily, but that's obviously somebody dying young and somebody who was a CEO of like a big company in Canada. So that's very tragic. But the most tragic part was, actually, I shouldn't even say that. One of the tragedies that went along with this was he was the only person who knew the passwords to the cold storage wallets that were holding the customers' funds. So everybody thought that their Bitcoin was safe, but obviously wasn't safe at all because he was the only person who knew, and he tragically died. Like, he didn't think he was going to die at 30, right? I mean, that's a super bummer. But $190 million in customers' Bitcoin was just completely gone. So it's still there, but it will never be moved because nobody's going to know those passwords. I mean, unless maybe he had it written down somewhere and somebody's going to find it someday, who knows? But they haven't. So 76,000 customers lost their money, and not just money, they lost their money in the greatest asset known to man, right? So with a completely massive potential upside. So that's a bummer, right? And that's a lot of people. So like, these weren't like careless people. They did exactly what they were told to store it on a reputable exchange. And even the exchange, as far as I know, was held in cold wallets, which is the way you would want to do it if you were going to be on an exchange, right? But it still cost them everything, like everything they had and all the potential that they had. So apparently there are still ongoing investigations on this, and some people believe that the death of this man might not have been an accident. So there you go. That's the last story we have here. But there is a lesson attached to this, obviously, and it's not your keys, not your Bitcoin, right? So it doesn't matter how reputable the exchange is. It's not your wallet, and you don't own the private keys, so you own a promise. And guess what? Promises are very easy to break, to be quite honest with you. So, we've just spent time here going over the different horror stories of people losing their Bitcoin, right? So, the reason behind that was because I wanted to show you like the weight of the consequences of your decisions within Bitcoin before I could tell you what the solution would be, right? So, all of these stories could have been preventable, but based off of people who were able to figure out the knowledge behind it, or just the basic security of Bitcoin. Because if you were to, obviously you can't predict somebody dying, but like the whole point was you didn't have it in your control, right? You didn't have the private keys yourself. You trusted the private keys to another party. And that's kind of the whole idea behind the private keys, is that like you want to keep them for yourself. So it's decentralized. Nobody can touch what you own. And it teaches responsibility. It teaches being humble, right? So I'm going to just quickly go through these things because I don't think today will be super long video, but there are a few layers here within how you can secure your money. So you have layer one, I would call, which is your hardware wallet, but this is cold storage. So cold storage is that it's like a physical device that stores your private keys offline, and it's completely disconnected from the internet. And the reason why this matters is because it can't be hacked remotely if it's never online. So it's like completely safe, it's offline. So the recommended options would be, let's say we got a few: Ledger, Trezor, Cold Card, and also Tangem, right? So if you have interest in these, you can get some links in my bio. Like, for example, I have Tangem here. You can get it in a ring. You can get it in multiple cards. You can get it with 10% off with the code in my bio. Also, Ledger, you can get perks in Bitcoin rewards back to you when you buy a Ledger wallet. All this information is in the description. So they're all reputable, and they all have different price points, but they also have the same security, essentially. Just do what you find your values settle in, and that's what you'll buy. So if you think about it like this, your Bitcoin lives on the blockchain, and your hardware wallet is just the key to the vault, right, on the blockchain. So you keep the keys safe, and then in that you keep your Bitcoin safe, right? Also, one thing I want to say really quickly, never buy hardware wallets on third-party apps or websites. Never buy one on eBay, never buy one on Amazon, never buy one apart from the main producer. So of the wallet, right? Manufacturer of the wallet. So if you're going to buy a ledger, ledger.com, right? If you're going to buy a tangent, tangent.com. Nothing else, right? You can obviously buy Cold Card, you can buy Trezors, whatever. But look into it, find what your values are, find where your values sit within these cold wallets, buy these cold wallets. I would also never give you a false link in my description. It just helps the channel out, it helps me out if you do purchase from those links. But the thing is, you can vet this for yourself. Like, I mean, I'm going to give you a link. The link is going to be, tangent.com with my promo code. And then once you go to tangent.com, you use my promo code. The Ledger affiliate link, it's going to be ledger.com. Vet it for yourself. I mean, I'm not trying to hurt you here. I'm just trying to help you. You can do whatever you want to feel safe. Don't trust, verify, right? So let's go to layer 2. So layer 2 would be the seed phrase that you have a backup on. So every hardware wallet that you're going to have is going to generate a 12 to 24 word seed phrase. So this is your Bitcoin. This is your private key. This is your key to the vault. This is the most important part. If you do not keep your private key safe, you lose everything. It doesn't matter if you have $4 in Bitcoin or $4 billion in Bitcoin, literally. Doesn't matter. That seed phrase is your everything, right? And there's different ways to do it. There's more complex things like multi-sig, stuff like that. But obviously this is just like learning curve. But the safest way to have it in terms of just being in an individual with a single seed phrase, that's your everything. So make sure you keep it safe. And the way you keep it safe is you write it down on paper in pen, so it can't be smudged and whatever. But also you have to keep the paper safe. That's the biggest problem here. So then that's why something like Tangem is great, because you have a durable card. It's like a debit card, essentially. It's a credit card, same size, but it has a chip in it. And that chip is going to generate your private keys offline, completely safe. And they have a 25-year warranty on the card, because none of the cards are really like, there's not a lot that's possible to fail, because you just have a chip and an antenna. Easy peasy. You have a 25-year guarantee. It's protected to all different types of things. Link in the description. The only reason I bring all this up is because I want you guys to be safe, and Tangem is my favorite. So another thing to be really safe about is do not take a picture of it. Do not put it in your Google Drive. Do not put it in your notes, right? Do not text it to yourself. Type it anywhere. Do not do anything with your private key if you are able to access it. And that's another good thing about the Tangem, is you never have access to the private keys at all. It's all within the cards and the chip. So some do's that you should do is store it somewhere fireproof, because you can lose it immediately, right? There's metal phrase backups that you can stamp your seed into, and it's a great option, but it's going to take an additional investment. But this is like generational wealth we're talking about, right? And not that you have to have generational wealth now, but just like $10,000 in Bitcoin could be generational wealth over time, especially if you're young. So this is why I make this super apparent. So another thing you can do is location, right? So having 2 physical copies in 2 secure locations, could be good to some extent, but it could also be like dangerous, like double dangerous now. But you can have it somewhere trustworthy so you can like diversify if anything natural happens, right? So like if you have private key, let's say at your dad's house or something like that, but then safely stored somewhere, but then you also have it at your house and you also have it at your grandma's house. So then if one day in a horrific accident your house burns to the ground or gets robbed or something, you still have access to the private key in another location, so then you could then go and take the private key to be able to transfer your Bitcoin to another cold storage wallet, simply in no time flat, as long as you can get access to the private key, probably quicker than the person who stole it from you. But these are obviously just like completely rare scenarios that hopefully just won't happen to any of you. But I just want to tell it how it is, right? So let's go to layer 3. The inheritance plan. Most people forget this step, right? Most people, like 99% of people, skip this step, but pretty much what this all just talks about is that we have to keep our private keys safe, like I was just telling you. But the thing is, if you lose the private keys, there's no one going to help your grandchildren or your son or whatever who you plan on giving the Bitcoin to, right? You can't call a bank. Like, you can't just call American Express and go, hey, like, please help me out. Like, no, sorry. Blockchain is unforgiving, but it's also because it's super like humbling, and you're supposed to be responsible, right? So here's a good quote: your Bitcoin is only as permanent as your plan for it. That's a good line, right? You got to keep your private key safe. This is so important, people, and this is how you can not be the people that lose their private keys and lose all their money, like a couple of the fellas that we outlined earlier in the video, right? I don't want that to be you. So let's go over 3 mistakes that most people make, and it's leaving your Bitcoin on exchanges. So Coinbase is not a wallet. Like, Binance isn't a wallet. They're custodians of a wallet or of your Bitcoin. So like, they can just decide to take your Bitcoin at any point if they wanted to, if they failed, or if there was a big lawsuit and they had to liquidate or something. Like, they just take it all, right? It doesn't matter. They own the private keys. So it's not your Bitcoin. You just, like my analogy before, you just have a receipt, but you don't have the gold. You have like a little app that shows you the Bitcoin you own, but you don't own it. Coinbase does, right? Mistake number 2, storing your seed phrases digitally. This is a massive problem. Like screenshotting it, or Google Docs or Google Notes or iCloud Notes or emails. All of these are just hacks waiting to happen. And if it touches the internet, it's not secure, because then somebody smarter than, presumably us with hacking experience will just take your private keys, and then they own the Bitcoin and now they're rich. Like, that's a problem, right? Never keep your private keys anywhere close to online. This is why, again, Tangem, which I love, link in the description, you get the card. There's nothing touching that. You don't get to see the private keys even yourself. You have the card. So just don't lose the card. You're good. Keep it safe. So there's a 30-year plan we can kind of outline here a little bit, because Bitcoin is designed to last, right? The blockchain has been running without interruption since 2009. So that's a long time of like no downtime, essentially. So this would be something that you set and forget. This is your Bitcoin stack, unless you have other ideas with it. But the whole point of like having money and being able to store your value over time is that you want to store it over time. You don't have to touch it, right? You're going to touch it for things that you want to buy into the future. And so it's like, this is generational wealth. So what a 30-year storage would actually look like would be to actually review your hardware wallet setup annually. You want to like be able to confirm it, right? You don't want this withered piece of paper in there in a safe somewhere for like 20 years. Like, that's kind of dangerous. It's just sketchy, right? I don't know. It's just, you want to be able to like go back and verify these things. Also, inheritance plans. Like, you might get married, you might have kids, you might have all those things to begin with, but you also might move houses or something like that. Like, you want to be able to track these things and have it as secure as possible across time, because different things change over time. So like, to wrap this up, you gotta stop thinking about Bitcoin as like something you manage, but like think of it as something that you're going to protect long term. Because like the people in these horror stories, for example, that I was telling you, they're not bad people or stupid. They just didn't have a plan, but also they didn't know like the best ways to do it. So now, as a person who's going to be holding Bitcoin, you do have a bit of a plan and you do have some knowledge if you were listening to me. So, that's great. You have a plan now. Hopefully, you can have the 30-year Bitcoin plan and give your Bitcoin to your kids. Might even be 40 years, 50 years, depending on how old you are. Might be longer than that. Who knows? We'll see. But, yeah, I mean, we've talked about these horror stories. And every single one of these horror stories could have been prevented if they just got a walkthrough or some information from somebody else. And this is where I want to make a shameless plug on my Bitcoin Entrepreneur School. So in the classroom of the Bitcoin Entrepreneur School, you can go deep about thinking like a Bitcoin entrepreneur and thinking about your Bitcoin privacy and learning all about the Bitcoin network. The link is in the description and it's 100% free. You can join anytime you want, meet a community of people, talk, chat, share your opinions, and also there's a massive classroom. And we're going to try to grow that just like we're growing this channel right here. Also on my website, you can become an affiliate and sell my book, Bitcoin for Normal People, and you can get a commission for it. You can get paid commission in Bitcoin or dollars, whatever you choose. And if all this information was valuable to you as we end this video, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. You also hit the like button. Hitting the subscribe button on this channel is the most sovereign thing you could do for your Bitcoin education right now, let me tell you. Because we are building this, we are building the school community, and we are expanding into possibly Instagram and Nostr as well. So with all that being said, I really appreciate all of you watching. I would love if you would support some of the links in the description and also hit the subscribe and like button like I just said. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you next Saturday. Peace.